Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color.
I'm Wendy Maybury, and I currently live in St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin. I am not super famous, but I've been around. I'm famous adjacent. How's that? I actually got a degree in teaching and then figured out I really wanted to be a photographer, because when I wanted to be a photographer in the 90s, like the late 90s, you really didn't have a lot of options for learning like you do today. It's really incredible what you can do. So I actually went to photography school. And back when you could do that, it wasn't just YouTube videos where you watch 3 and now you yourself can open a studio. And so it was a really cool program called Hallmark Institute of Photography in Massachusetts, which was a tech school. At the time, there was like Brooks, which was like the really high end. Did you know at Brooks, you used to be able to get a Doctor of Light? Did you know that?
A doctor of...
Doctor of Light. You could get a doctorate in light. Like, I used to always be like, I'm a doctor of light, man. That's like the most useless. No offense.
I had never heard of that. So my mind is a little blown right now, but I would love to have a doctorate in light.
I know. Wouldn't that be amazing? And then if anyone argues, you
so.
I have a doctorate in light.
It'd be like those Holiday Inn Express commercials or whatever. Like, no, I got this. I have a doctorate in light.
So like, does any a doctor in the house? Yeah. And then you at a photo shoot. Is there a doctor? And he goes, I'm a doctor of light. What's your problem? Right. Anyway, I feel like there's funny there. In fact, you should see if we can still find a Brooks graduate that has a doctorate in light. I'd be super curious what the classes are. I feel like there's a lot of.
I'm not going to lie. If there's a doctorate of light out there listening to this, I want to talk to you, Jed at WHCC.com. Just keep that in mind.
Please do. Mm-hmm. And I would listen.
Yeah.
I've thought about you for years and what that was like. Anyway.
Who wouldn't?
So, I know. So Brooks Institute in California, and these do like underwater photography and cool stuff. And then there's like RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. There was a bunch of creative circus in Atlanta. I interviewed there and got in and just decided to do Hallmark because I already had a 4-year degree and it's only a 10-month program. And it was like, we're going to teach you all the nuts and bolts, and then you're on your own to learn art, which is it's a technique.
Sure.
And so then they had you interview your favorite photographer. And I, as a kid, had fallen in love with this photography book called A Day in the Life of America, where the National Geographic sent out 100-some photographers all over the U.S. to photograph one day and then made a big coffee table book out of it. Do you remember that at all, Jed?
No.
No. Okay. They did a bunch of follow-ups. They did like A Day in life in Ireland, A Day in life in England. Because, if you're going to make something great, iterate. So.
Well, when I was a kid, I looked at National Geographics for other reasons. Oh,
for the, yeah. Because that was educational. We were Baptist.
It was educational.
Yes. And I was like, wow, ladies in Africa. It's like,
We were past Baptist. So it was mind-blowing for me. I could not believe it. Anyway. Pardon the interruption.
No problem. So those were good times. Anyway, so I had fallen in love with this photographer, and then I interviewed her. And actually, Jed, that's one of my favorite. I was just telling you before the podcast started how right now we're in the middle of this global pandemic shutdown, and how never in my life, every single person I've reached out to this week has like answered my calls because no one's doing anything. I'm like, this is the best time ever to make connections.
It really is. I'm having a lot of success. Oh.
Yeah, I need to. There you go. Boom. Sorry, did that come through?
No.
Good. That was Anthony.
I don't know what it was.
Okay, good. I just had someone call me. Anyway, so I was going to say, I reached out to her. They wanted you to interview her. And this was before cell phones. I don't know if you remember back in the day.
I do.
I had like the only place you could get reception was the Stop and Shop because it was the high point of the town. And I went there and I called her. And they wanted me to call at like 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. First of all, she left like 6 messages on my phone that were 10 minutes long each going, I don't have time for you. I have no time. I can't speak to you. I'm too busy. I don't have time for this. And I was
an hour's worth of telling you that she doesn't have time.
Totally, which is very Mary Ellen. If you've ever, Mary Ellen Mark was her name. I don't think I said that yet. And she's pretty amazing. She was, I think Hasselblad or American Photo named her like one of the most influential female photographers. She's a big deal. Check her out. If you have never seen her work, take a look at it. It's really amazing.
Well, you were saying she had keep going with this story because I want to.
Anyway, so I interviewed her and she had photographed Mother Teresa, who at the time, as a Christian kid was like, what?
Yeah.
And so I remember saying to her, how do you photograph famous people and not lose your mind? Like, how do you, and she said this is by the way, my imitation of her, which is approved by her husband. So it's okay. Every head is an object, light the object, take the photo, don't be amazed. And I was like, okay, like she had great advice, just pearls of wisdom.
That's honestly though, that's also pretty good advice.
It's great advice.
Yeah, for real.
Don't be amazed.
Right.
Light the object.
Don't be amazed. Light the object. Yeah, perfect.
And so anyway, I said to her at the end of this interview, I'm like, hey, can I call you back if I have more questions? Which I should have known was going to be a no. And she said to me out loud, I'm never speaking to you again. If you ever want to ask a question, ask it now. This is your moment.
That's the best.
I said to her, I know, it's probably also would have been true, except that then what I said was, everyone thinks you're this really famous, like serious photographer, but I think you have a sick sense of humor and it comes out in your photographs. There was this moment and she goes, oh my God, nobody gets that. You get me. Come work for me. Come to New York. Come work for me. And that was it. I went from I'm never speaking to you again to 10 seconds later, move to New York City and come work for your favorite photographer in the whole world. And I was so freaked out. I thought this will never, first of all, I always think everyone in New York is insane. Sorry, New Yorkers. But I'm like, they're insane, right? Because I'm a military brat. We're very grounded in reality. We're very like, no artifice. No, you're worth nothing. You're a piece of whatever. You're lucky anyone's talking to you. I'm very grounded. So she's like, move to New York. You must move. And so I commuted from Massachusetts, Western Massachusetts to New York City for a month every day to work in her studio because I was like, this is never going to work. Like she's going to fire me one day out of nowhere.
Right.
Like this is so capricious. And one day I yawned. I was, this intern scanning sheets and doing stuff for running film to labs and getting equipment and putting stuff to just, grunt work. And one day I yawned and her husband went, oh, we boring you, who's Martin, who's adorable. And I love him. And I said, well, I have to get up at 4 a.m. to get here by 8. And he goes, oh my God, Mary Ellen, did you know she gets up at 4 a.m. to work for us? And she was like, I didn't know. I never knew that. So anyway, I got to work for them for like a year and some change. And I got to work with her on book deals and it was incredible.
The way that you're talking about her reminds me of, and I've only seen the movie once, but it reminds me of Meryl Streep's character from Devil Wears Prada.
Okay.
I don't know her name.
Where it's one more story real fast because this is 100%. I tell people all the time that was my life in New York. 100%. So when the very first day at work, she looks at me and she drops $20 at my desk and goes, "Get me an interesting muffin." An interesting muffin. I'm like, well, what is that? And so I took the $20 and the girl next to me, who was another intern, goes, try Olives, which was a place right around the corner. This is again before the internet. And so you had this little book called NFT and you would it would have block by block what was in New York. So I'm looking at my map, and trying to figure out where it is. I walk into Olives. And again, I'm from, by the way, sorry, I worked on a fashion shoot later on and this fashion stylist said to me, you should never wear gingham again, ever. Like you're not a picnic table. So like, did not fit in New York at all. Right. So I walk into Olives and I say to the guy behind the counter, I'm like, I need an interesting muffin. And he doesn't even blink. He just grabs a muffin, shoves it in a bag and hands it to me. And I'm like, what is happening here? And I take it back to Mary Ellen and she goes, perfect.
You still don't know what it was. When you said olives, I thought you were talking about she was suggesting you get her an olive muffin.
Oh, no, there's a place called Olives.
Right, I get that now. But I thought to myself, an olive muffin would be
That would be interesting. Wouldn't it?
Now, you did mention, I do want to cover this real quick because I thought this is an interesting piece. You said that her and Annie Leibovitz kind of had a...
Oh, my God, did they?
That's the best.
They both became famous at the same time. If you look back in history, right in the late 60s, which I oftentimes, like in New York on the subway with no money when I was an intern, I was like, man, that was the honey time to want to be a photographer.
Yeah.
Because there was nobody doing it,
Right.
and you had to be really good because you either had unlimited Polaroid or you knew what you were doing. There was no net.
Well, and it's not like any of them at that time had any idea it's not like they were aspiring to be these amazing famous photographers. No. They were just really good and really tenacious and really got after it all the time.
Yes, they were. And Mary Ellen was beautiful too. If you look at pictures of her, I think she was so winning that people would just be like, okay.
Yeah.
Like he wanted to shoot me naked in a bath. Sure.
Yeah,
All right.
right.
Like they just wasn't a thing. And
Right.
so they went down different paths. You know, Annie was at Rolling Stone and became the Rolling Stone photographer. And Mary Ellen really did a lot of personal projects, way more documentary work. And she did celebrity work, but it was mostly to pay the bills for her documentary stuff. Because I think her self-perception, and rightly so, was that was her life's work, was this photographing, kind of like Diana Arbasi, underprivileged, unrecorded folks in big projects.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it was really, I actually had at a photography school, we all kind of went to New York and all worked for really famous photographers. If you haven't heard this story yet, have you heard of Kevin Bacon? Have you heard of him?
I do know of him.
Yeah, so he went to school at my school, and this kid, his name was Kevin Bacon. And so he would call these studios and be like, it's Kevin Bacon. And would immediately get to talk to the photographer
right away,
who thought it was Kevin Bacon. And so I met Kevin Bacon, the real, who when we were photographing Kira Sedgwick, and I said, have you heard about the photographer Kevin Bacon? He's like, that guy, he's everywhere. Yes, I've heard about him. He's ridden my coattails. And so, you know, I was like, I'm 1 degree. Anyway,
that's so great.
It was crazy. So New York was like total hustle time. No one knew you. No one cared about you. You had to be really useful. And luckily, being a military brat in my background, it was great because I just worked really hard. And the hard thing though is I'm a big talker, and I had to learn how to shut up, which was a huge life skill because I get a lot of attention in the room. I had to not do that.
Right.
So it was awesome. So I worked there until right after 9/11, and then I moved to LA and worked for some other celebrity photographers and worked at kind of a headshot lab because the industry took a nosedive. You know, I left with 2 suitcases and $1,000 and no job, no car, no apartment. And it took me 2 months, and I got a job, a car, and an apartment. And so anyway,
well, you just tossed up a segue softball right there.
Yeah.
Well, you did, because people have been thinking about, you know, the big events that have happened, and we've even discussed this in some of these videos, is 9/11 was one of the times that if you were in the mix, you remember what it was like, and you remember the effect that it had on the economy and on society and on business and on each of us personally. So with what's going on now, how are you personally, from a personal standpoint, what is it like for you to cope with it?
Well, it's been an interesting week. So first of all, I feel like, you know how your grandma would always say, you don't know what it's like to suffer. I feel like,
yes.
Oh yeah, I feel like I'm now going to have street cred of like, I know what it was like. I ran out of flour on day 4 because I can't plan for shit. Sorry
Right.
So I do think I don't know. I'm trying really hard to look at this as a character building experience, an opportunity to show grit, an opportunity to show ingenuity. I am a single mom. I keep the roof above our head, and I have a little guy. So I'm trying really hard to look at it as nothing lasts forever. And it's good to keep perspective. And when things get back to normal, what you do is still valued. So I actually do a couple of things. I do stand-up comedy and I do photography, and we can't have an audience right now. So everything I do is dead in the water because it's all people related.
Right.
And we can't assemble people. So it's nerve-wracking, but I think, and I've been boohooey. I've been most boohooey about is, I don't want to, because I'm going to do it again, is, you know, I live in a small town, and small businesses are super hurt. So there's still, I'm such a girl. Sorry, expect tears.
No,
anyway, this local lady who I really love, by the way, her husband, this is a side note, but has a robotic leg, or has a artificial leg. Prosthetic, which my son goes, he's a robot.
Right.
And the guy's like, yes, ma'am, I am. Like, he's the best guy ever. And he got that leg because he was helping change someone's tire and someone clipped him on the interstate, which I know from the neighborhood. Like, he's just a good guy, right? He and his wife own this ice cream shop downtown, which, you know, ice cream isn't necessarily a necessity. Well, they've started making soup. I know. Well, for times like this for you and me, Jed, it might be. But anyway, they've started making soup and just handing it out. So I've been like, right now we're sheltering in place, but last week when things were a little bit different, you know, you could bring it out to the street and they would bring you soup. And so I went out there and I'm like, hey, how much do I owe you? And she goes, well, you're in this with me. Like, you don't owe anything. And I was just like, and I said, well, I got a paycheck this week. So I threw her some money. And it's just like, that heart that I already see people displaying makes me feel like we're going to be okay. We're going to find a way to care for each other. And the other thing that happened last week was I found this table on Facebook. What do you call that? Marketplace.
Yeah.
I've been looking for this exact table. It was $20. And so I was like, oh, let's chance it. We're going to get this table, which I feel like there's going to be great stuff on Facebook Marketplace coming up very shortly. Anyway, so I drove out And this lady was the hairdresser. Her husband's a potter. She's pregnant. They've got 2 kids there. And they're like, well, we're selling this table. And then we just exchanged money and talked to them. They're both out of work already. And this is like week 1 of it being bad. And they go, well, we have this extra orange juice because our neighbor has diabetes and can't drink this orange juice. Do you guys want it? And I'm like, yeah. And I thought, okay, we're already at this point. We're exchanging 3 chickens for like a dental checkup.
The bartering system.
Yeah, but the truth of it is we all have resources like that. You all have things you can offer that are valuable. And I think if we lean on our neighbor and the internet connects us in a way that was never possible. Even in 9/11, I remember having a busy signal, trying to tell people I was alive, and I had a busy signal. Like, couldn't call for days.
Right.
And so I feel like if you can lean in to thinking about what you can do to add value to people, and you can just keep yourself not spiraling the drain, and hold tight. I've already done the worst case scenario math. I'm like, okay, can we keep our house? Then I think it's a chance for your character to shine. And that's what I'm holding on to.
What is it like being, you mentioned the single mom piece. Talk about that a little bit, because it is on you. It's you. Yeah. What's that like?
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure. Oh, it's great, Jed. No, I mean, it's, I'm teasing you. It's, I think I've had people tell me that being married, you fantasize when you have something. The human brain wants what it can't have, right? So whatever you don't have, you imagine is this amazing thing because you don't have it. And it's you cherish it much more than what you actually have. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times I always say, oh, I wish I could tap out and someone else could deal with my kid for a while and I could take a nap. And then I meet people who are married that go, yeah, my spouse is useless. So wow. Like, that's a nice fantasy. But well, I don't know. I don't have to, one thing I enjoy about single parenting is I'm the queen. There's no democracy. I don't have to negotiate with the other adults.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. You don't have to like get it. You don't have to be on the same page with anybody. You're the boss applesauce.
Yeah. Which is, I used to always feel like, oh, that would be so bad for my kid because I'm so wackadoo in different directions.
Oh.
Like but he seems fine. So far. We're only 6 years in.
He seems great. I was so excited. Actually, you posted a video of him dancing that I happened to come across earlier today. And I thought to myself, I am so glad that I'm going to be talking to Wendy today, because for me, you represent like who we should be right now as a society. Thanks. Right? And especially considering your circumstances, because it is on you and you do such a great job. And I love to keep track of what you're doing with your little fella. I won't say his name because you call him G and I won't say his name. But
yeah, that's fine.
It's so great to see what you're doing. And you represent strength, and you represent what we should all be aspiring to do right now. And in the words that you were even saying earlier, leaning in and like just being available for other people. Now we're closed down a little bit more than what you were last week. So what does your life look like even now as opposed to last week?
Well, so it's funny because I've had it in my head to write a guide to photographing your kids with cell phones, because even though photographers feel like it's tragic, and it sort of is, the phone on you that you already own is amazing equipment. Yeah. And I get real frustrated when I see people take crappy pictures with it. And I'm like, can I just do a quick guide to here's how to photograph your kid? Because here's the truth. I used to work for Life Touch, and that was a $7.99 experience, right? For $7.99, you could get a decently lit picture of your kid. And it did a lot of heavy lifting for families that don't have money on childhood historical stuff. And now they did schools too. And it used to be you'd buy your school portrait. People don't buy that either. And I know professional photographers that are independent a lot of times get frustrated at Life Touch because they feel like, oh, they're so cheap. Well, let me tell you, they're not your customer. Our customer, or I don't work there anymore, but that customer is not your customer. Right. You don't want them. Right. And they do exist. Like, there are people who literally budget-wise cannot afford more than they have a lot of children or whatever. And you shouldn't ever look down on people for wanting photographs of their kids. But more than ever, moms are historians, and they're doing a crappy job of recording history. And so I have a personal passion about, hey, moms, stop taking pictures up your nose. Hey, stop putting 80 filters on you. No one needs to see with rabbit ears.
Please, no more of that.
Please stop that.
Or extremely limited.
Right. Yeah. And also looking at your kids like a photojournalist would. So I've had this idea in my head since I worked for Life Touch about writing a guide available online for, hey, here's some ideas if you're not a photographer on how to use the tool you already own that will cost you nothing to take better pictures of your kids. And it's ironic because right now, of course, Life Touch studios are shut down and they canceled spring photos. So I don't even know if they're going to come back because JCPenney's is closed until April, and that's a tough retailer anyway. So this could be more valuable than ever. So actually today I've been like, all right, if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. Like, buckle down and get this done. So hopefully we'll launch the next week or two. And it's not aimed at photographers. And I also talk about how when you should hire a professional, because I think 100% newborn pictures, hire one. You're exhausted.
Right.
It's not safe if you don't know what you're doing,
right.
Et cetera. But I'm trying to launch that guide. And I have a Facebook group called The Real Life Guide to Photographing Your Kid. So it's not necessarily that you want to compete with these Instagram moms where everything looks perfect. That's not my deal. I would really love you to capture, and maybe that comes from Mary Ellen, where she was super documentary. Like, capture the beauty of your real life, because your real life is really pretty.
Right.
It doesn't need to be Instagram filtered. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
There's beauty in all things.
In fact, many times it's better when it's not filtered.
Oh my God. Right? That's my favorite.
Certainly more relatable.
Well, certainly. Oh, that's, you know what? I said to my mom one time, she says, like, I can't believe you went on Facebook Live with your house so messy. And I go, well, I don't want anyone to feel like I lead this perfect life. My mom goes, don't worry. Nobody thinks you do. She's like, no one thinks that.
You're safe, Wendy. Yeah.
You've way destroyed that illusion. It's okay. You could clean your house. So
I'm going to ask you just a question I was curious about personally. That's the photography stuff, but I'm also super intrigued in the whole stand-up part of your world. Yeah. What do you do? What is anybody doing in that space right now?
Well, I've done a virtual show on Instagram already. I've done a couple of those. I have an album coming out finally. I recorded it a couple years ago, and it's going to launch June 26th. So it's a ways off, but I'm working on that. And then I don't know. I think you write new jokes. I've been thinking all the time about, every time I think something's funny, I'm like, write that down, because audiences will come back. Yeah. I mean, it will happen again, and it would be dumb to not have any material.
So it's just you're just prepping, right? And in a sense, especially if we get to the other side of this, or when we get to the other side of this, you're going to have lots of material. There's a wealth of stuff going on right now, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I think too, I mean, did you see poor Jennifer on Twitter? Okay. Sorry, listeners. I'm telling you, on Twitter, look up #poor Jennifer. Oh no. It was a group of 8. It's okay. I mean, it's a group of 8 social workers that were doing.
Yep. I saw it.
That's funny. Yep. That's funny. That's people adjusting to a new reality. Yep. People who've never worked from home. Like, you go, oh, you should put pants on before you get on a video conference, and don't stand up. Like, yep. It's just, I think that every time Americans face hardship, we find humor. You dig in and find humor. And I feel like this is a time to do that. And then the other thing is, I've been on a personal level just trying to be funny with my friends, because if you, it's an antidote to despair in a weird way. And, photographers, comedians, artists, we tend to circle the drain when we throw up our hands and say, oh, this is the reason why it's not going to work for me, or this is the one more thing in my path. And it's important to stay positive and decide to take positive action anyway. I saw John Acuff is a good friend of mine. Do you know John? Yeah,
I just saw his message yesterday, was it, where he was talking about how he gets like the sniffles or like a little tickle in his throat.
Yeah.
And I can't remember his wife's name, but he was like, Jenny, yeah, that's it. He's like, does my eye look kind of red? And she's like, you don't have the corona.
Yeah.
You don't have the virus.
Yeah. They were my neighbors in Atlanta.
Oh, dude, really?
Yeah. And if there's one in there that talks about the granny rat killer. That's my mom. My mom killed a rat for them in their garage.
Oh my gosh. In his book?
Anyway. Yeah, it's in the book. Anyway, so John and Jenny are friends of ours, and John's been doing a really good job about saying, hey, pick faith over fear, pick action over anger. Like, decide to get up in the morning and put pants on, and just sort of doing these. I sent him a text today. I'm like, hey, these are A+. He's like, I think I'm going to start doing them every morning. And then it was really funny because the principal of my son's school, I reposted on my Facebook today, and she commented, I'm not ready for this. You've been doing it for 7 years. This is my first week working from home. #slow down. And then she used a very explicit word.
Oh.
And I was like, I died, because it's my son's principal.
Right.
Was like, easy killer, Mr. Positivity. I'm not there yet. And so that brought me to realize that everyone's grieving. Like
Right.
literally everyone's grieving. So if
Mm-hmm.
you take it in the lens of going, all right, we're all in grief. So taking everyone where they're at and moving them a little bit forward, that would probably be what I'm working on doing. It's just seeing what I can do to, I had to lay off 12 people as part of another gig I was working on. I do some consulting for comedy.
Yeah.
And so companies hire me to do big trainings because they hire comedians. Because if you have to listen to someone for 8 hours, listen to a comedian.
Right.
And I had a team of 12 people that were helping launch a deal for a restaurant. And they worked for me for like 3 weeks. And I just had to lay them all off. And it was like, yeah, it's just awful. And so I've been trying to talk to each 12 of those people and figure out, some way to try and lift their spirits a little bit. Because it's hard out there, y'all.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
And it's going to be hard for a while, but I think that I love the whole part about leaning in. I think that this is it, that there is an opportunity here for us now to do just that. And you said it, in that everyone's grieving right now, but there are also different stages of grief, and everybody grieves differently.
Yes.
So I think it's a big deal to keep that in mind as we try to come alongside people, right? Because that principle, there are some people that just aren't going to be ready to not grieve for a while. That's totally fine. Yes.
Yeah. And that's been really helpful for me online. I don't know if you guys, I found this conversation, I know I'm plugging the podcast I'm on, but I have found it to be great. I've listened to it when I'm traveling. I was telling Jen earlier, I listened to it in the subway, and it's just helpful to me to get inspired by photographers. So some social media is great and lifts you up, but if you find yourself getting your blood pressure, there's no point.
Yeah.
There's no point.
Abort.
So take a break.
Get out.
And I've also realized some people's insanity, like it's not my job to correct everybody.
Nope.
Which is hard for me because I want to.
You want to.
And then part of it is realizing that part of their crazy might be feeling like circling the options, right? So I've heard lots of people put forth like crazy medical advice and weird non-factual crap. And I'm like, that's probably them processing.
Yeah.
So try not to take them by the neck like I want to.
Well, you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, which is probably a good idea right now.
We all need grace.
Right. Amen. Thank you.
We all need grace. We've all been there. We've all said stupid. You want to hear something really dumb I said one time? This is really random. I had a friend of mine came up to me and said, it's going blind, and confessed to me that they're losing their eyesight. And I said out loud with my mouth whole, well, there's probably never been a better time to go blind with technology being so great. What? What were you? I look back on that and think, Wendy, that was such a dumb thing to say someone who was.
Was that one of those things that, I think I get what you meant, but was it one of those things that immediately as the last word, you're wanting to wait a second and put
No, I believed until I saw it hit their face. And then I got, that was stupid. That was really dumb. You should probably just shut up now and then just listen. So I feel like those humbling moments, because I thought I can fix this,
Yeah.
Wendy, I never will forget that. I've oftentimes thought now when people tell me big stuff, I just listen.
I don't know. I think we all feel better about ourselves right now after listening to that.
You should. Oh my God, Jed, let me tell you one more real fast. Okay. This is when I photograph seniors, this is what I tell them, because seniors all feel self-conscious, right? Everyone feels like there's never been a bigger dork than me.
Okay.
I tell them this story because this wins. Every single person I've ever told this story has gone, yeah, wow, dude. So I was an exchange student to Germany my senior year in high school, and I broke my leg in a very Germanic way. They were like, let's go sledding. And in America, you go up and down a hill and then you're done because you're not, you're physically exhausted. In Germany, you climb up a black ski slope for like 4 hours. And then you go down one time, which is really stupid way to ski or to sled. And so I went up the ski slope with them. And in the first turn, we hit a tree. And my leg snapped out of the jeans, which is awesome.
Yeah. Wow.
So anyway, I was in a wheelchair for a couple of weeks and I was back in school. Now in German school, they make you go down the stairs for breaks. I had to go to the elevator, and the cool kids were smoking and I wanted to wheel up to the cool kids. So I'm in my wheelchair, wheeling up really fast to the cool kids. And I wheeled through very unwell dog excrement. So it slung up into my armpits and covered the wheels. So I was covered in dog poop in a wheelchair, and I went up to the cool kids and I was like, hey. And a minute later, they all go,
oh, you didn't?
And I didn't know. Jed, I live in a world where I'm never wrong. You have to understand. And then they all looked over and I'm like, no one helps you clean poop off your wheelchair in high school in a bathroom.
No.
And then every single senior I've ever photographed have been like, oh my God, you're the biggest dork I've ever met. I'm like, I know. So you should feel really good about yourself right now. Let's take some pictures. And it always works. So I think it's really fun to make if you're going to try and make calm people down, always make them the hero, take the bullet. And that's my story to do that.
You're very good. You're very good at it.
I have so many humbling moments, Jed. Speaking of which, I should give you, I have myself standing in as a miniature pony in a Mary Ellen shoot. We were photographing.
Oh, you're a stand-in. Yeah.
I was a stand-in for a pony, but an animal. I'm on all fours.
Oh,
being a pony. Like,
well, that's not demeaning.
That's humility, right? Yeah,
right.
Once you've stood in for a pony. Anyway, there's that.
Hey, thank you for this.
Thanks for having me.
I knew this would be a pleasure, and it absolutely was. You did exactly what I hoped you would do, and you just made me laugh and laugh and laugh. So thank you for that.
Hey, Jed, thank you. I want to just tell you, I told you when I met you the first time, I fell in love with your family when you adopted your daughter. And I was one of those people that like bought all your textures and prayed for you before I even met you. And it's truly been a pleasure to get to know you in real life, because I think you're an awesome dad and an awesome guy. And it's a real pleasure to talk to you. It's my honor to be on your podcast. Thank you for asking me.
Have a great day.
You too.